let me briefly go back to this console or this REPL environment, as it's sometimes called. And let me once again create a simple one, score equals 0. Brilliant. If score equals 0, I want to print yay. Oops. Parentheses, yay. What if, so in this case, it works. It prints yay, and if the number was something else, if score equals 10, print yay, it doesn't. What if I want my computer program to decide not only whether to do something or not, but to either do something or to do something else? It's as though you're walking down a path and then you have a decision to make. If something happens, I go down the right path, or if it doesn't, I go down the left path. The way we can do this in Python is as follows. So I can say if score equals 10, print yay, which is what I had before. Then I could say else print nay. So now one of those two will happen. Either score is 10, in this case score is 0, so it will not do that, or if it isn't, it's going to print nay. So here I have an option. I can either go down one path or down another path. We actually have, we can even have an if statement with more paths rather than just two, but we'll have a look at this in a future lesson. So let's go back to our code. And let's say that if fred.xscore equals 100, I want to say Fred has reached the end, but if it isn't, I want to print carry on as usual. So Fred and Mary are still carrying on. So now every time the loop runs, every time Fred and Mary move by one step, one of these bits will happen. Either carry on as usual is printed and nothing else, or we'll have print has reached the end, Fred has reached the end, and we're changing the value of carry on. Let's find that. And you can see that carry on as usual is being printed out all the time until at the end it says Fred has reached the end, and then you may remember the end, the last line, is coming from outside of the while loop. This is what happens when the while loop ends. Good. Now, let us make this a bit more interesting. And let's make Fred and Mary move forward by different amounts. So we can, for example, say, I want Mary to move forward by 2 steps every time, but Fred to move forward by 1 step every time. So what's going to happen? Fred is going to go faster. And there you can see that Mary is going faster than Fred. Sorry, it's Mary who's going faster because Mary is going at 2 steps. I'm going to stop. I'm going to leave that. Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to see how we can make these random in a bit and change them so that every time I run the program, Fred and Mary have a different speed, and I don't know what that speed is. We'll do that in the next lesson. But first, I want to also make sure that the program ends whether Fred reaches 100 or Mary reaches 100. So what could I do? I could do something similar. In fact, I'm going to be lazy, right? I'm going to copy and paste all of that chunk of code. You may remember that we don't like to repeat ourselves, so I'll be changing this. But for the time being, let's pretend I don't know about dry, don't repeat yourself. So I've copied and pasted that, and I'm going to change this to Mary. Now, we have to be careful. What is Mary's, in fact, let me print it out. What is Mary's x coordinate? Am I not printing it out? You see, error I made. I wrote Mary.xscore, but I'm not printing it out. In the script, I need to print it out. Print Mary.xscore. Let's try again. Can you see that the numbers are negative? I'll stop it there. Why? Because the middle of the screen is 0. So if we go to the right, it's positive numbers, as was the case for Fred, but Mary is going to the left of the middle. So the numbers are all negative. That's how we know whether we're in the left or in the right. The same applies for top and bottom. Above the middle is positive numbers, below the middle is negative numbers. So in this case, I would have to say, if Mary.xscore equals minus 100. And then we can say Mary has reached the end. Carry on equals false. We still want to turn the switch off. And we still want to leave that else, right? We have a slight issue here because now every time the loop runs, it might print carry on as usual twice. But we're going to fix this in a bit, so let's pretend we haven't noticed that. And notice that now the animation ended when Mary has reached 100. Mary has reached the end because Mary is going faster, right? But if we make Fred go even faster now, Fred is going at 5 steps every time, Mary only at 2. This time it should be Fred, there we go, who stops the animation. Fred has reached the end. So we've made our code work whether it's Fred or Mary. Now, whenever you see repetition in Python coding, and with time you learn how to spot repetition and you learn how to make it such that it doesn't repeat. We have 2 if statements. We call these an if statement, that do almost identical things. They print whoever the name is has reached the end. They are switching off the while loop by changing what's stored in carry on. And if that hasn't happened, we're printing out carry on as usual. So the only difference is that we're using Fred in one and Mary in the other. Let's ignore that for now. And in fact, for the sake of this example, let's change this to the turtle. Later on, we'll see how we can fix this. The turtle has reached the end. Brilliant. I can merge these into one. Let's see how. So I'm going to get rid of all of that. And this is the condition, we call it, that we had. So I'm going to cut it there and remove that if statement. What do I want here? If Fred's position is equal to 100, or, and I'm going to paste the condition I had before. If Fred's position is equal to 100, or Mary's position is equal to minus 100, whichever one of these two happens, doesn't matter which one, then I want you to print the turtle has reached the end, turn the switch off. If neither of them have reached either 100 for Fred or minus 100 for Mary, then I want you to say carry on as usual. And there you go, the turtle has reached the end. In this version, because I've changed slightly, it doesn't tell me which turtle it is, but I can see that it's red. So it's Fred in red who's reached the end point first. So we've now made our program a bit more robust in that it doesn't matter whether it's Fred or Mary who have reached 100 or minus 100. In both instances, the printout will tell us that someone has reached the end and the while loop will stop.